privilege to welcome to the stage, producer of that segment, my friend, and I think a voice that we all trust, Dana Bash.
Thank you.
Dana is CNN's chief political correspondent and co-anchor of State of the Union, the network's Sunday morning newsmaker show. She covers campaigns in Congress and regularly serves as a moderator for CNN's political town hall specials and presidential debates. And just last week, CNN announced that Dana will soon anchor the daily afternoon show, Inside Politics. Mazel tov, Dana. Congratulations. And we're really glad to have you with us. And this is kind of a treat because Dana has interviewed me. She'll often call me, but now I get to do the talking, and she's on the hot seat, so that's sort of fun. But the topic we're going to talk about today is actually quite serious. So you recently returned from a trip to Auschwitz with Wolf Blitzer, commemorating the 80th anniversary of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. Can you share not just your impressions for the trip, but how it came about? Like, what was the thought process? And then sort of what were some of your takeaways?
Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you for inviting me here. And also, the clip that you just saw was the open, as we call it, for an hour-long special that Jonathan and so many people at the ADL were, I mean, you were instrumental in helping, not just doing the interviews, but in helping guide me and my team, our producers, in making it happen. And so thank you for that. About last week, or maybe it was the week before last.
I think 2 weeks ago, yeah.
2 weeks ago. The answer to how it happened was my big boss, the biggest boss that I have, David Zaslav, who is the chairman of Warner Brothers Discovery. He decided that he was going to join with two friends of his, Robert Kraft, who is the owner of the New England Patriots, and Ari Emanuel, who is the head of Endeavor.
Those are some friends.
They all had their own planes. I did not. That they were going to do a delegation together for the March of the Living and for the 80th anniversary of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. And as part of that, they decided that they would each take people with them. And so he called Wolf and he called me and said, do you want to come? And I said, yes, I would love to come. And he said, look, I want you to experience it. I want you to really find meaning in what you do there, and I certainly did. He said, but you know, this is also a way for us to use our platforms to shine a light on not just what happened in the past, but make never again mean something. Yeah. That it's about what's going on right now. And so we were able to do that in a really profound way, and I wasn't sure, frankly, what to expect. Mm-hmm. And a lot of what we were able to report on happened organically, particularly when we were at Auschwitz, and we can talk about that if you want. But I feel so lucky to work in a place, A, that thought that that was an important trip to take, but B, put so much, so many resources and time on our platforms to talk about these issues.
Yeah, I mean, that's a consequential decision.
Yeah.
So two of your most high-profile anchors across the world to cover an event that happened, 70 some odd years ago. So talk to us about what it felt like to be there and the commitment of the network.
It felt heavy. I had never, have you been to?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd never been to Auschwitz. My great-grandparents were murdered there. My great aunt was there, but then we believe she died on a death march. But for various reasons, I didn't feel, I felt a pull to see it, but I just kind of didn't really want to. Part of me didn't want to. But then it fell in my lap, and I said, of course I'll go, and I'm so glad I did.
Yeah.
And I have to say that, it was kind of weird because we were there, again, to observe, to feel, to be a part of this, but also we were working, so there were cameras on us, and but the most unbelievable moment that was not captured by the cameras, but I'll tell you what happened, was, so Wolf and I were doing sort of our thing with the camera, telling each other stories, and then we met up with the group who were walking around with an expert guide. We met up with them right outside the gas chamber at Auschwitz, Auschwitz I, they call it. And Wolf started telling the guide about his family. His father actually is from the town of Auschwitz.
Wow.
And that both of his parents were survivors. Both of them were in slave labor camps, but that his father's parents, Wolf's grandparents, died at Auschwitz. They were taken. And so he was telling the information about the dates and about their ages, and the guide said, and we were standing here, and the gas chamber was like right here. And the guide said, oh, your grandparents died right there in that gas chamber.
Wow.
And it was like, I mean, it was so incredibly heavy, because it's one thing to hear that information. You know, so many of us have gotten information about our family and our ancestors that maybe we didn't have before, but to have it standing right there on this, I don't even know, you don't even call it hallowed ground. You just, this hellscape basically is where we were, was unbelievable. And I was able to bring my brother, Wolf brought his wife Lynn, and then I started asking the guide about my family. They were Hungarian, and he said, oh, they came in 1944. I said, exactly. What town? Košice. Oh, they didn't make it here. They were over at Birkenau, and they just, in their 50s, they probably didn't even last an hour. They probably got right off the train and were killed.
Wow. And
my brother started crying. Everybody, it was so powerful to be there and to learn about it. And then again, to go into that gas chamber with Wolf and to experience that this was in our piece, him standing in this place that he had just learned moments earlier was where his grandparents were murdered.
That's heavy.
It was super heavy and so important.
Right.
And he said in the piece, it's so important for a lot of reasons, but one of them is that the Holocaust denialism is real and it's on the rise, as we know a lot because of your work. And he said, like, this is so important. This is not fake. This happened. We're here. This is real.
Well, it's interesting because I think when a lot of us, and not everyone in this audience is Jewish, when a lot of us who are Jewish see you, Dana, we know you're sort of, a member of the tribe. And I think we know Wolf, but I don't know that most audiences know that. I'm not sure it's obvious to the general public. So how does being Jewish, affect the way that you tell these stories in a time of rising anti-Semitism?
It's such a good question, because I'm guessing that if I were doing my job 20 years ago, 30 years ago, I might have told that story in a more detached way. In a, like, this is what happened, just the facts. And now I think both Wolf and I feel compelled to do it in a more personal way in order to humanize and make the reality of the situation hit home in a more poignant and powerful way. I don't know if that worked, but, and we didn't even talk about it.
Right.
It was just kind of an understood thing that this is what each of us wanted to do.
Wow. Well, it's interesting because I think anti-Semitism is really a conspiracy theory about how the world works. And we're living in an age when conspiracy theories are the coin of the realm. And frankly, disinformation seems everywhere. How hard is it for you to do your job as a journalist in an environment where it seems like disinformation, misinformation are rampant? How does that change the work for you?
It's really hard.
Yeah.
It is like living in an alternate universe sometimes. It makes the work more important. I don't know that any of us has cracked the code quite yet of convincing those who have been convinced that what we report, what you report with your data is real. And so far, the only thing that we have just decided that we have to keep doing is trying.
Right. Yeah.
And to bring people in who are, like you said, there are people in this room who aren't Jewish. One of the things that was amazing about this trip is that Robert Kraft brought the rapper and hip-hop artist Meek Mill with him. They had formed a relationship around criminal justice issues. And I mean, this is a guy who grew up in the inner city in Philadelphia. He said, you don't even know the way I grew up. And he said that he put everything that he put pictures and information on his social media, and he said, I'm going to take this back to my community.
Yeah.
And how important is that? Particularly at a time when other rappers are approaching this in a very dangerous way.
Well, I think that's sort of understating it, right? I mean, but that, makes me think about this issue of anti-Semitism. I mean, we've tracked how extremists have targeted and trolled Jewish journalists in particular, right, with anti-Semitism. Have you encountered that?
Not like that. Not like Julia Yaffe, for example.
Julia Yaffe, Jake Tapper,
Yeah.
Ben Shapiro.
Yeah.
I think Wolf to a degree. We've seen a lot of it. What about you?
A little bit. So back in 2012, I believe it was, and social media was just becoming like really potent. And I was covering the Republican primary race. And I said something that I was just reporting on something that Rand Paul's father, had said or not said. It was to me it was like super innocuous, and it had absolutely nothing to do with religion. And it was misinterpreted by his people and by supporters of his. It wasn't him or his campaign, just supporters of his. And they started trolling me. They made a Twitter handle with my maiden name, Dana Schwartz, with the Israeli flag behind my face.
Yeah.
And we were able to get it taken down. Probably couldn't do that
Probably not today.
But that was honestly the only time that I know of that I experienced that. And it was weird, especially since it had absolutely my Judaism had zero to do with whatever it was that his supporters were mad about.
Well, look, I mean, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Is like your Judaism has very little to do with the way we do our jobs, the way we lead our lives. These are the values, but for the anti-Semite, for the bigot, that's the only way that they see you.
Precisely.
Right? Not as a human being, but as something else, and that is the problem. So, but it makes me think, look, I'm going to use the opportunity, and maybe this will be the last question because I'm mindful of time. You mentioned 2012. We're heading to 2024 in a race. Give us, if you will, some of your thoughts as we look ahead to this election cycle, what role you think maybe disinformation, misinformation will play, how you see things playing out in terms of the candidates. The race seems to be taking shape now in many ways.
It does. I mean, it's early. Remember in 2016, we thought Scott Walker was going to be the nominee.
Scott Walker.
He didn't even make it to the Iowa caucuses. So I would just say, I definitely am so out of the prediction business after 2016, but I wasn't really in it, but I'm really out of it now. Disinformation is because of the way that news sites have been siloed, the way that people consume information is through an echo chamber. But it's also so much more nefarious now because it's not just that. It's not just actual humans doing things in a way that are dangerous. It's AI, the bots that we have seen over the past few cycles.
Yeah.
That is something that we all have to be mindful of. I mean, you can see a time where they would make a deep fake of Jonathan Greenblatt saying something that you would never, ever say.
I think we've seen that actually already.
Really? Is that true?
So. You could ask Scheinberg, but I think we've already seen that.
I mean, it's really scary because then you actually can't even believe what you're seeing and hearing.
Yeah.
You can't believe your eyes and your ears.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, look, Dana, thank you for your grace. Thank you for your guts. Thank you for being there for our community and for the country. We're all rooting for you and just appreciate you being here with us this afternoon.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
You're a sweetheart.